Okay, so yeah, sorry for this. So the next speaker is Tassilo from Austria, and yeah, Tassilo, the floor is yours, and I'm about to give you the presenter role in a few seconds.
All right.
Okay, here you go.
This one. So, obligatory question. Do you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So, thank you very much for having the opportunity to give this little presentation here. So, my name is Tassilo Pelligrini. I'm from the University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten, and I want to basically give you some insights of what we did in the area of license clearance. Also, I want to use this opportunity for a call for action and participation, because we are planning to go open and public with our results and endeavors that we did in the past few years in the area of license clearance. And this is also what I want to show to you. So what I'm talking about today is Dalek, which stands for Data Licenses Clearance Center. It's basically a public demo that we provide to show the capabilities of semantic web technologies, of linked data, and all other fancy stuff that we can use to ease the effort of checking license compatibility and support license clearance. So in a nutshell, Dalek is basically it's a software framework that you use to check license compatibility and to support license clearance. So what we basically do is we support mainly legal experts, app developers, data engineers in the cost-effective and legally secure reutilization of third-party data sources. I have to admit that we have a very broad conception of data. So what we basically do is that we have clearance with licenses relevant for software, for content, and for data. Who are the main beneficiaries of this system? It's basically, first of all, software developers and data engineers, but of course also legal experts on the one hand side within companies. So these are the departments that care about legal issues, but also law firms that provide this as a service to clients. Then this service is definitely interesting for scientific libraries, but any kind of libraries that basically store, administer, and basically manage some kind of data sources. Then definitely it's interesting for data and software platforms where you can basically, for example, publish projects and make them available to the public. And finally, of course, in the commercial sector, it's about product managers and sales personnel that also need to have a good understanding about the, so to say, legal compatibility and legal issues associated with a certain digital product. You can test all of Dalek online. So as you see here, if you type in www.dalek.net, you can enter basically the portal. As I said before, this is basically a proof of concept, what we have right now. So we were successful in proving the technological feasibility of the license clearance, but of course, there's still room for improvement. So in a nutshell, what is the architecture and also, of course, the knowledge graph perspective of our system? So here you see a high-level definition of the architecture. So you see we have various components like a license search, a composer. Then we have a library that contains a lot of pre-modeled licenses. And then we have something like a license expert that we call a license annotator. And of course, what is quite interesting here, we have this component called a license negotiator that helps you basically check the compatibility between licenses, given that the licenses are represented in RDF, ODRL, and that we use these statements and a set of rules where we can basically calculate the compatibility between certain conditions given in the licenses. Technology-wise, it's quite say a slim system. So for the content management component, we use Drupal 7. For the search and composer components, we use the pool party framework of Semantic Web Company. The triple store is basically a virtuoso component, and as a reasoner, we use Potasco in combination with Klingo, which is answer set programming approach to our problem that we try to solve here. From the perspective of license exports, we currently provide an HTML version of the licenses, but also an RDF version of all the licenses. Then we are also currently, actually it's already available, a linked data front end, but it's not available to the public right now. So this will be available in the next weeks to come. So this is the architecture at a very high abstraction level. And here I want to give you some insight into basically the ontology and knowledge graph perspective that is relevant for the Dalek system. So what you see here, we basically have three knowledge graphs or three dimensions that we basically try to combine here. First of all, we have the license that is basically represented with ODRL and some other vocabularies. So the license is defined as a policy that has permissions, duties, and prohibitions, and then you can perform various actions that are either allowed or not allowed by the license or by the policy. Then the second dimension that we are covering in this knowledge graph is a so-called questionnaire, which basically is something like a guided dialogue, or also actually to a certain degree something like an ontology that you can use to basically create licenses. And this so to say questionnaire helps you to define permissions, duties, and prohibitions that are associated with a license. And this is basically powering the composer tool, the license composer tool that is implemented within Dalek. And then another, so to say, dimension that we covered in our knowledge graph is a so-called dependency graph. So we have created another model that helps to specify and define certain conditions, how the various actions that are defined within the license relate to each other. So here you can see certain actions, for example, can include other actions or can imply certain actions, or actions, or of course, can contradict each other. And this dependency graph basically provides us with the, so to say, the allowed and prohibited dependencies that can be detected within a license, but also between licenses. And this knowledge graph is basically then used as an input. So this RDF is basically then being transformed into another language that's called Klingo. And then this Klingo statements can be processed by Potasco, which is then our reasoning engine. So where are we right now when it comes to the services that we provide with Dalek? So the existing features are basically, and here I do not just list the features, but also what we would like to improve in future work. So we have a license library that is also including search functionality. So for the demonstration purposes, there are currently 50 licenses available, and 350 are still in the background available. So in total, we already have 400 licenses in our library, but for performance reasons, we reduced it now to the 50 most important licenses currently available on the market or in the public. Then we have a license composer. Here, basically, future work will be about simplifying the dialogue and the UI associated with it. Then we have this license negotiator. It's a functional prototype, but still there is improvement necessary to enrich the dependency graph and also extend the rule set. Then we have a license annotator.
1 minute. 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. And then basically we have this license dashboard that we use to support management activities. So the future extensions is we try to set up the maintenance and get it, so to say, available on a continuous basis. We are working to build a developer community around Dalek. We will want to have these Dalek APIs to include the services into other systems. Then we want to create a knowledge base and an open educational resource. And we will also try to offer legal audits in the future because we're working together with a professional law firm. I want to skip the rollout plan and directly skip basically to my call for support and participation. So we are working on issuing an open developer program where we want to develop Dalek further. And here we are looking for support, either organizational support, also individual support. I want to mention there is a lot of things are still open to be discussed, and we are also open for input, for ideas, and to share basically our resources with everybody who is interested, and basically providing Dalek as an open resource to anybody who is in need or still is at least interested in the issue of license clearance by the use of semantic web and linked data technologies. So in this sense, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tassilo. Very impressive work. Thanks. Let's see if there are questions. Christoph is typing a question, I guess. So there is a question,
yeah.
Do you plan to develop license decomposer?
Yes, so yeah, actually for the time being, and this was important to get a good understanding of how license clearance works, we basically started to create the composer to model license manually. But of course, the aim would be that we do not do this manually, but simply to develop a mechanism where you just put the license text into the system and it's automated, the clause is automatically detected. So I think this is not really rocket science, it just needs to be done. And it's definitely part of our future activities. So there are millions of other ideas that we also want to do, but this is definitely one of them, yes. Julia is saying that I should send the call to DBpedia@info.dot. Thank you very much. Yes, I will do so.